This is the story of the Eastland, the boat that capsized in Chicago. On July 24, 1915, crowds flooded onto the Chicago River. Thousands of people lined the banks. Others jammed onto neighboring boats. Everyone wanted a clear view of the Eastland, one of the largest vessels on the river. Built in 1903, it was a double-decker boat designed for sightseeing. Now, on this day, the third-class passengers were on board. That meant mostly African Americans, Irish immigrants, recent immigrants, women, children, working folks. There was supposed to be 2,500 of them. In reality, there were over 3,000. The heat was intense. Some said it was the hottest summer ever recorded in Chicago. All the people crammed together, the atmosphere grew tense. Suddenly, a cheer erupted. The Eastland docked. People surged forward to get off the boat. But within seconds, their cheers turned to screams. The ship tipped sideways, then flipped upside down, trapping everyone inside. At first, only 250 people managed to escape. Then 200 more, then nobody. The sun beat down. People thrashed in the water, screaming for help. Soon, their cries were replaced by sobs. By the end of the day, 844 people were dead. It was the deadliest maritime disaster in U.S. history. But the real horror came afterward. Who was to blame? Well, seemingly everyone. The captain, the crew, the owner, the chief engineer, the inspectors, the politicians, they all blamed each other. But all along, the true story was hiding in plain sight, kept secret by the same forces that kept the Eastland afloat. What really happened on the Eastland? We don't know exactly who organized the trip that day, but we do know who profited from it. Millionaire William W. H. Hart bought the Eastland with two partners. One was politician Charles O. Hutchinson. The other was Captain Edward McHenry, who oversaw the ship's construction in 1903. Together, they ignored safety regulations. The Eastland was built to carry 2,500 passengers. But that was based on the ship only traveling on calm waters. In reality, they packed it much fuller and traveled on the windy, choppy Chicago River. Years passed. Inspections were conducted, but the Eastland remained afloat. The truth was, the men in charge bribed officials. When the ship was finally inspected by the U.S. government, they found 24 violations, including overcrowding, faulty lights, insufficient lifeboats, and locked emergency exits. But shockingly, they also found that the ship was unstable. The Eastland should have been taken out of commission immediately. Instead, they gave her a conditional certificate, good until June 1916. That was 9 months before the accident. But while this was technically a violation, the story doesn't end here. When the public learned about the inspection, they were outraged. So the politicians pressured the chief engineer to resign, and the papers hailed it as a victory. In reality, the politicians were protecting the guilty. The chief engineer was a scapegoat. He wasn't even involved in the daily operations of the ship. He'd resigned 3 weeks earlier. That's why when the Eastland tipped over, he wasn't even on board. While the story of the Eastland is tragic, it's not unusual. Many disasters are caused not by accidents, but by negligence and corruption. After the disaster, the public demanded answers. 3 separate investigations were launched. Yet none of them pointed to the real culprit, the people in charge of the ship. The first investigation blamed the captain. Why? Well, mainly because he was black. The papers called him inexperienced and reckless, saying he'd been drinking the night before. But he'd actually worked for the company for 14 years. As for the claim that he drank the night before, well, there's no evidence to back that out. Next, the Illinois Attorney General investigated, and guess what he found? The captain was responsible. Apparently, Eastland had sailed dangerously close to other vessels. But again, he wasn't in charge of safety or maintenance. When the federal government investigated, they found the same thing. Someone else was to blame. They claimed that the ship's owner approved a dangerous renovation that made the boat top-heavy. But where was the evidence? Well, ironically, it was sitting in plain sight. You see, the Eastland was renovated in 1914. That's when they added the second deck, making it a double-decker boat. But who approved the renovation? Captain Edward McHenry, the same man who was part owner of the ship. Basically, they blamed anyone but him, the real culprit. But while the public consumed sensationalized stories of the disaster, someone else was busy covering up the truth. Enter George W. Drake. He was the head of the Steamboat Owners Association, a powerful lobbyist group. Soon after the disaster, Drake formed a committee to improve the steamboat laws in Chicago. Sounded noble, right? Well, he handpicked the members. They included two politicians, both of whom received sizable donations from the ship owners. Also on the committee was a former inspector who approved the Eastland despite its problems. Shockingly, they never mentioned the ship's owners or the ship's problems. Drake himself became the chairman of the board of local steamboat inspectors. In short, the entire investigation was a sham. They wanted to appear helpful, but really, they were protecting their own. After a year, they published their findings. Guess who was to blame? Drumroll please, the captain. Oh, and they offered some bonus material, just for fun. According to them, most victims died because they didn't know how to swim. But here's the kicker, the committee never presented their findings to the city council. They didn't want anyone else knowing the truth. Then in 1917, a journalist broke the story. The committee's plan was uncovered. Drake's role revealed, but by then, it was too late. The truth was buried. The real culprit, the corrupt system itself. The captain was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison. The other owners, they lived lavish lifestyles. Now, while the captain spent 5 years in jail, the sentence was reduced to 1 year. Public outrage forced the politicians to commute his sentence. Still, he became a convenient scapegoat. Meanwhile, the real culprits walked free. Today, the Eastland Disaster Memorial sits near the accident site. 844 names are engraved on it. But for 100 years, their stories were lost. The systemic corruption, the cover-up, the political interference, the greed. It was a perfect storm of evil, just like the perfect storm, a Category 5 hurricane that hit the New England coast.